swear you military men are always the same.
You've got a hell of a lot of nerve. You're a kid. What could you know?
Well then, if I'm a kid, why were you watching?
Well, 'cause you're nice to look at.
Greetings once again, my friends, and welcome back to Geek News Anime Night, where we take a particular series and dissect it episode by episode. I am your host, Adam Mickelson, aka Drek. I hope everybody's having an awesome day or night when you're listening to this. And once again, we are delving right back into Mobile Suit Gundam, the 8th MS team, and with episode 3 today, which is called The Time Limit on Trust. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the synopsis for it. Shiro must attack an enemy base from the rear while his team attacks it from the front. Unfortunately, he gets captured by guerrillas on his way there. In the end, Shiro ends up making friends with the guerrillas, and they help the 8th MS team to destroy the base and drive the Zeons out of the area. And yeah, so at this point, the story is kind of heating up because now we're having Shiro in a much more active role as commanding officer of the 8th MS team. And in their current assignment, they are actually trying to disrupt a supply route for Zeon. And in order to do that, the plan is basically that Shiro, since he's proposing the plan, he is going to go in by himself into enemy territory, into the rear of the base, and he's actually going to try and take out some of the gun installments that are firing down on his crew. But because of actions in the previous episodes, he's going to have some setbacks as he gets caught by the guerrillas in the area, because there's a bunch of villages that are being occupied by the Zeons during all of this. And so he then has to basically, within a very finite time limit, try to convince the guerrillas to help him out, let him take the installation or the minor base, and then at that point being able to free the village as well as any other villages in the area, and also as a bonus try to claim the supply route for the Federation. So I actually did like this because it sets up Shiro's character as well as him as a commanding officer, and also the fact that he might have some interesting ideas to be able to take care of things. So I already like this, but let's go ahead and get into the notes that I actually did. So the first thing I had was the guerrilla tactics on display by both sides is great considering the surroundings. Again, I love a lot of the combat scenes that we've seen so far because it is a jungle environment and it feels like that on both sides. You can see that the Zeons have issues, especially the Zaku's out in the jungle areas, have difficulty being able to take down the Federation units, but also the 8th MS team has a lot of issues considering that, this is Zeon territory, and so they're trying to retake it, being able to gain the supply route that Zeon has taken away. Interesting strategy for a sneak attack by Shiro, but it seems a little bit too risky. And this is actually just referencing the plan that I just explained, is that he's basically, since he went to the waterfall in the previous episode, he's going to follow that waterfall all the way to the rear of the base and try to take out the gun installations that are firing down on them. And it is risky, but considering what Shiro has shown us in previous episodes, it makes sense for his character, and also it makes it somewhat doable given his knowledge of the territory at this point. Looks like the girl from the last episode is one of the guerrillas Karen mentioned, so this is referencing Kiki. I think that's her name. Let me double check really quick because I do have wiki information, so I don't wreck it. Kiki Rosita, that's her name. Yeah, so Kiki is actually the Holy Boobs Batman from the last episode, and I think she's supposed to be like 16 in this, maybe a little older. I can't remember, but yeah, so she's actually one of the guerrillas because her dad is actually running the guerrillas from a local village. So it's an interesting thing that you learn as you go along. But yes, Holy Boobs Batman is back, and she is one of the guerrillas. So looks like we're going to be dealing with her quite a bit. I love this interaction, by the way, and I made a note of it, so I'm going to mention it. Why were you watching me? And this is referencing when Kiki and her guerrillas actually capture his Gundam, and take it into the village where Shiro's essentially captured, and he isn't sure if he's going to be able to make the, I think it's like the 3 o'clock time limit, to which at that point he needs to be in the rear of the base while the 8th MS team is firing on the front so that he can free up the gun installations and they can take the base for themselves. But yeah, why were you watching me? Because you're nice to look at. I love the response for that because it's such an honest one. Shiro's just like, well, you're nice to look at, and I'd already had a bad day. So I liked how he said that. Can't argue with the logic from Shiro, I guess, although I don't know if I'd agree. And yeah, I get where, maybe he hasn't, seen the figure of a woman in quite a while because of his military training and whatnot, but she's kind of miss for me. She's not exactly the hot stuff that they kind of made her out to be in that fan service moment. I'm getting really sick of the guy's various so this is referencing back to drama queen Nidorike, who keeps on rewriting or writing all of these dramatic love letters or to whomever he is writing them to. But thankfully, in this case, I actually really loved that I think it was in this episode, Elidor basically smacks him around with what he's doing and just kind of points out that you're not going to keep your girlfriend if you keep writing dramatic bullshit like that. So I at least got that from Elidor, so I'm happy about that in the slightest. So yeah. Various letters. Love how guerillas were messing with Shiro's suit. Makes me pine for the later series where the suits had security systems. Yeah, this was one thing that didn't make sense to me, and I mentioned it in the notes. It's like, they're messing around. They commandeered his suit, and I get it. They commandeered it, but in later series, we get security systems. And if you don't mesh with that security system, it just kind of shuts down, or it shocks you, or something to that extent. And that would have just added so much more to it. Because the scene that I'm talking about is when they're messing with the head, and one of the guys is actually like holding on for dear life. It would have been funny if everybody just got shocked from that whole process. Like Shiro was able to press a button or something before he actually got out of the mobile suit. But it makes me pine for those days. And this is in reference to Kiki's dad, and of course they're led by freaking Big Boss, lol. So yeah, it's Big Boss in a wheelchair, basically, is Kiki's dad. He runs the guerillas in the village, and when they have like the nice questioning scene, I guess, we get a nice little wholesome moment where he's just like, I don't give a shit. I'm just gonna sit here and drink my tea while you plead for your life or plead to be able to finish your mission. And eventually things do get worked out, but I did like the fact that the guy has a freaking eye patch, has kind of the same ruffled up hair that Big Boss has in a lot of those Metal Gear games. And yeah, he's Big Boss in a wheelchair. Loved it. Okay, I get it. Shiro has a lot of guts reaching for that gun, but reaching for that gun was not a wise decision. I think this is where he actually tries to I think he tried to threaten Big Boss, roughly, and said, I gotta get out of here because I've got to be here by a certain point so that I can free this, not just take it from the Zeons, but be able to free you. And so he actually reaches for a gun and just demands to be let go. I think that's the scene that it was, and it was dumb, but it's once again displaying Shiro having guts. So I don't necessarily hate it too much. Kiki is already getting on my nerves, and I've only dealt with her for half a damn episode. So eventually the agreement is that in order to let Shiro go, Kiki offers to go with him to help him out with his mission and make sure that he fulfills his end of the bargain, which is basically they'll take the base and they get the supply route and all that, but everything else, everything from the Zeon base, that's all spoils for the guerillas. And so Kiki is there to make sure that he makes good on his part of the deal. And eventually she kind of just joins him in the mobile suit. And first of all, it always looks really dumb in the cockpit when there's only room for one person. And now we have Kiki in there just kind of like bouncing around in the cockpit, being able to find a comfy place to sit. And it gets even worse in the combat because then she just starts getting flung around. So it's definitely one of those things that I kind of wish they'd stop doing, but I kind of get why they did it. Because they needed to make sure that the deal made logical sense, and it only made sense if Kiki went with him. So going into the next one, okay, following in the river, I get, but submerging, I don't even think that's plausible. And the reason I say that it's plausible is I don't think it's ever mentioned that these jungle Gundams would be built to basically be moisture vacuums. They would be completely airtight. And I might be wrong about that, but it seemed really weird to me because that seems a little too much. And yet, nope, they were actually completely airtight. So I guess I was wrong in the long term, and it actually turned out to be a worthwhile deal because some of the underwater battles that we got in this episode were freaking awesome. So yeah, I didn't know if it was plausible just because I didn't think the military would spend that extra amount of time making ground-based mobile suits airtight. Maybe if it was like an underwater mission, but this was spur of the moment. I don't know if they would have done that. Well, better late than never for Shiro, I guess. He literally got there. I think they said he was like halfway in to the hour window that he had. Yeah, better late than never for Shiro, I guess. But still a good combat moment where he basically shoots up with the boosters just above the base and just starts shooting the gun installations. That was actually really awesome. Let's see. Damn, Sanders got some good aim. And yeah, Sanders has like a cannon during a lot of this, and he actually had a couple of good shots in that. Again, they're making Sanders out to be a really good pilot, despite the fact that he's supposed to be this Grim Reaper guy. I'm starting to think the Grim Reaper means that he's got a high kill count. Okay, underwater combat with a lead Zaku, still calling bullshit, but it was entertaining bullshit. And this is referring to the Zaku versus Gundam battle that Shiro had with, I think it was the commanding officer of the base and his lead Zaku. And they had an awesome fight underwater. The only thing that took away from it was all of the gags with Kiki bouncing around in the cockpit. So like her butt would go into Shiro's face, then it would be her foot, then it would be her back. And it just got ridiculous. But hey, at least we got some good mobile suit combat out of it. So I can't necessarily complain that much. And then, oh, hey, look, the guerillas got some Zakus because they eventually get all of the spoils of war. So it works out. They even got Elidor's tank, which I loved. Poor Elidor, he loves his tank, especially all of the nude chicks that are in it. Crap, Shiro's starting to earn Karen's respect. Oh, no! Yeah, this is another moment where Karen's not sure about this plan, but she executes it the way that Shiro wants, and they cut back to her every now and again where they're getting hailed down with gunfire, and she's just not having any faith that Shiro can do what he says he's going to do. And then eventually, once the village is reclaimed and all that, she's like, oh my gosh, he actually looks like he could be a good commander. So I'm giving Karen a little bit of crap here, but frankly, I am starting to like her character just a little bit. It started out where she was going to be like staunch feminist or whatever, but now it actually does really feel like she's a legitimate second in command. She actually does care if the unit is successful or not, and making sure people get back alive. But overall, I will give, once again, this episode is a solid 4 out of 5. It's still a damn good episode. The strategy, although I do have questions as to whether or not they could actually pull it off, it worked. And it actually was compelling enough to see Shiro fight the clock. And especially when he got captured by the guerillas, he's fighting the clock the entire time, and then eventually is able to make up for that and complete the objective. It was easily edge of my seat kind of stuff, just making sure that this whole operation could go off. And because of that, it was actually worth sitting through some of the, I called it lesser moments, but you get what I mean. Like all of the Kiki stuff, especially the whole thing where all of the guerillas that work specifically with Kiki, they know that he saw her in the nude, and so they're constantly poking fun at Shiro, especially in front of Kiki's dad. So it's obvious they haven't told him, because he probably would have wanted Shiro dead at that point, and all of that would have been for naught. So yeah, those are lesser moments, but still, it all made up for it. And so I have no problem giving this a 4 out of 5. And that'll go ahead and do it for this episode. So thank you guys so much for your continued support for this run-through of the 8th MS team. When we come back, it will be episode 4, The Demon Overhead. And I look forward to seeing you guys there. Until then, if you're brand spanking new on YouTube, welcome. We're happy to have you. If you like the video, make sure to like it. If you want to see additional stuff, make sure to subscribe, because there's plenty of other podcasts and mini-casts and all that other stuff for you guys to enjoy. And then also you can check out, if you're on podcast platforms, you can check us out on Amazon Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Player.fm, and of course, Spotify. And I will catch you guys next time for episode 4 of Mobile Suit Gundam, the 8th MS team. Take care, my friends.